So the solution sounds easy. Scientists and agricultural producers have to become part of the conversation. We need to stop talking to each other, our own echo chambers, and start talking to non-typical audiences. But how do you actually do this?
Now, this is the big problem, is that nobody ever teaches us how to do that. That's why this kind of video is so important. Nobody ever trains us how to interface with the public. And when we do it wrong. We come off as arrogant. We come off as aloof. We come off as people who are speaking strictly from authority and not worrying about how people feel. And that's where we blow it. As scientists, we tend to come in as the high and mighty, we have the information we will now put into your head. And that's not how this works. We have to earn trust before any informational flow. And it doesn't come from being an overbearing, heavy-handed authority. It comes from a series of other tactics. And maybe that sounds a little bit negative, but a series of other approaches that really rely more on psychology than they do on hard science. I shouldn't say that. Psychology is kind of a hard science too these days, but more than biology, chemistry, physics, and in the case of biotechnology, not biotechnology. These are ideas from psychology and sociology about how people respond to information. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, and that's right. And the main point is that when you're speaking with somebody about the issue in which you are the expert and they are not, this is not a discussion that you're used to in the halls of your university, where you're both experiencing shared premises and are able to have a conversation about that. When you're discussing these issues with a layperson, you need to engage your ethos and speak with them on a level that they can be with you on. So how do we build trust as scientists and ag producers? People will say, we just need to educate them. We just need to show them the data and provide the citations and teach them the facts. These are actually not particularly effective strategies.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again. Just give them more information, they'll be fine. The problem is the information is all out there. We have information. And so an information deficit is not the issue. Psychologists call this trying to correct it with deficit thinking, trying to just fill the gap that the people have. That information is not the problem. It's them understanding the trust that they need to have in the source before they will accept the information that we give them. And this is really boils down to human psychology and this thing over here to my right, the human brain. This is really about how people process information. And we don't think about this, but it's really important. And I think all of the things we'll talk about today really will make us better scientists and better at communicating with the public. But they make us better people in the home. They make us better with our colleagues when we understand how people think. And this comes from the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Dan Kahneman. And Kahneman breaks down the way that humans process information into two ways. The first way is system one. He calls this system one. It's emotional, it's reactive, it's irrational. It is fast. It's when I say 2 + 2, you think 4. This is the fast way in which humans process information, and really think of this kind of as the reptile part of the brain, right? It's the part of the brain that evolutionarily kept us going because it responded to a threat. It responded to a threat quickly and got us and our families out of the way. Over time, humans would develop, and other higher primates, system 2, logical, strategic, calculating, slow. This is the higher cognitive executive function. This is the part of the brain that when I say 2,742 times 176 has to take on that task. So what you're really seeing here are a battle between two different parts of the brain. One part, which is the higher cerebral cortex executive function, versus the limbic system. It's thinking fast and thinking slow. When we're looking at messages about food, they tend to appeal to system 1. This is the base of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. This is the fundamental stuff that keeps us alive. So the idea of technology and food sometimes can be bent to appeal or touch that system 1 fast part of the brain. And this is when people have ideas, let's especially talk about crop biotechnology, that they tend to provide threatening messages that scare people with system 1. Here we are as scientists coming with our information, our statistics, and our, hey, let me show you figure 5, that we're trying to appeal to system 2. And this is where we have a fundamental problem. The other big issue we have is this problem with tribes.
People uh, exhibit very tribalistic behavior.
It's a big part of why we are who we are, and evolutionarily, how humans have become very successful. It's the fact that we were able to band together with people like us and identify them as friends and people who have thinking that's consistent with ours. But you see the danger of this in the age of the internet. We tend to group together with people who have similar interests, and we see this all the time. We also adopt ideas from the tribe that maybe we don't necessarily subscribe to deep in our hearts, but because they're tenets of the tribe, we tend to be comfortable with at least understanding and trying to accept them. We see this all the time in politics. Uh, we also know that tribal behaviors really anchor our core beliefs. And we get together with people who are like us about the deepest spiritual feelings we have and find great comfort in that. Think of any kind of gathering around any kind of ceremony. And what's really cool about tribes and human behavior is that if we don't belong to one, we go out and create one. And we tend to get together with people like us. And so you might trust that person with the big piece of cheese on his head more than you trust somebody in the Walter Payton jersey in the Chicago Bears jersey, to use a football analogy. The idea is that we tend to gather with people like us, and we find comfort there in accepting that core values of that particular tribe because it sustains us and protects us. It's very nourishing for us as humans to have that kind of tribal belonging. And that's the other big problem when we are out doing science communication. We're trying to talk to people who are from non-scientific tribes. They tend to maybe even have ideas that are very counter to science and the things that we understand and we know very deeply. And so trying to communicate with them means that we have to understand who they are and why they feel the way they do, if we're ever going to be able to influence them.
Right, and many people don't realize that their tribes may be uh, counter to what science is indicating.
Absolutely.
To establish trust, you have to override this reactive brain, this fast-thinking reptile brain, this tribal brain, and override those tendencies. You have to establish that you are not on the opposite team, that you are not a threat. You can do this by actually listening to people, by showing empathy and affirming your shared values and your dreams. You have to align yourself as part of their tribe before they can accept the premises that you are offering as a scientist. You have to build rapport.
Yeah, rapport is a really important word. And maybe it's not so much that we have to, be part of their tribe, but we have to at least show that we're not a threat, that we're coming to their tribe with information and messaging that is really consistent with their values, that we have something that they need to know about, that they need to care about, that really is consistent with what the tribe wants. And that's really, really an important part of what we need to do as scientists if we're going to be more effective.
The good news is that scientists have a good basis for trust. The public generally views scientists and farmers and agricultural producers as being trustworthy. We're consistently rated as competent and knowledgeable and respected as well. Yet, despite these advantages, we typically fail to engage with the public, and scientists, when they do this, generally do it wrong.
Oh yeah, they're awful. I mean, coming from somebody who did it wrong for a long time. I mean, I screwed up so bad when I first started to engage the public and came off so negatively. I actually worked against us. I mean, I actually made it worse. And only with time did I really understand the rest of what we're going to talk about.
You used to show up with slides about of data, right? The
Yeah, I used to
process
show
for genetic engineering.
Yeah, I'd show up with like pictures of vectors and multiple cloning sites and things and say, all right, now you're going to love this. Because what it boils down to is those kinds of slides are totally ineffective because facts don't matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Facts do not matter unless you have trust.
Mhm. And it's really important for us to remember words by folks like Maya Angelou. And she frames this beautifully, that it's not about the information. We're not correcting an information deficit. We're trying to figure out how to get the people who are listening to our information to trust us. And a big part of this comes from her quotation. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did,
But
they
people will never forget how you made them feel.
how you made them feel. It's about the heart. It's about that reptile part of the brain. How do we make people feel comfortable that we are in a position for them to trust the information that
This
we're
is
giving?
a very different way of communicating than what you're taught in the university, where it is staid, it is analytical. Uh, you are taught in your writing to purge yourself of emotion and empathy and ethics, and this is exactly what you need to be using to engage with the public.
That's right. Oh, very good. Well put.